Good morning. This is Jean Palmer. And today is May 23rd, 2018. And Jean, just tell me a little bit about yourself and your family background and where you came from.
All right, I was born March 26, 1931 in a place in Birmingham called Bush Hills. And stayed there for a while, and then I moved to Cahaba Heights. And we moved to Moody several different times, so I went to St. Clair County Schools off and on. But I was made a child of God, accepted him into my heart on, don't remember the date, but it was at New Miracle Baptist Church, which is now Vestavia. But I was 10 years old, it was in 1941, and so I was joined with two of my sisters, so we were baptized in the Cahaba River, hand in hand, and that has always been a joy in my heart to realize I was there with my sisters when I was baptized. Being born in 31 makes me half as old as the 175th when this church was started.
Oh.
I'm exactly half as old.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in Moody until, first we left in about 49, went back to Birmingham, and in 54, from 49 to 54, there was a need in my life. And I had a mother who prayed, was a real prayer warrior. Well, it took God 3 years to answer that prayer, but when he answered it with a miracle. And that miracle happened on December the 27th, 1951. From that moment on, my life began, really. And you know, a lot of people say they don't think numbers are important, but my life was made up of numbers. Me saying that is because in 54, we moved to Leeds with our family. And that's when I joined Cedar Grove. Darrell Jones was pastor, and I'll never forget two occasions or things that happened then. Was one, J.C. Spearman and Darrell came to my house and asked if I would help teach in the junior department. So I accepted, and I began to work with J.C. and a couple of other ladies. We met in the basement, very damp and very dark.
Yeah.
So we stayed there and taught those juniors, and our Bible school, junior Bible school class also met down there. But it was a joy working with J.C. I want you to know, in October, before he died, Christmas Eve, he came to my house and raked straw, and he didn't put it in bags, he put it in pickup truck to carry to Louise's yard and dress it up, and I'll always remember him for that. Another thing that happened back in those days, the fourth Sunday in May was Memorial Day at Cedar Grove. Now that was the day you put on your finest clothes, the mothers cooked the best food, and the cemetery was decorated by everybody. Well, after we ate that food and the food was put away, we would all, especially the mothers and the children, would start up that hill looking at those decorated graves, and it looked like an Easter egg hunt. Everybody in their finest was up there looking at those flowers. Well, in 58, we moved back to Birmingham. Now, the miracle that God had sent me is the way that numbers began, because we moved to Florida 4 different times. I went to 10 different churches, and that's where the numbers come in. Everybody knows what I think of Cedar Grove church family. the best I've ever been a part of.
Yes.
Well, going to all those churches with those 10 different pastors, there was people involved. And those people made up the church family, like all those different. And so there was always the good, the bad, and the ugly being a part of it. And I'll never forget, at Bellevue Baptist Church there in Pensacola, the pastor's name was James Kelly. And his wife had a heart condition. And every time we saw Brother Kelly leave the pulpit in the midst of his sermon, he was following his wife outside. And when this would happen, a deacon would take the pulpit and we would have prayer.
Oh.
But when you saw Brother James leave, that meant his wife was sick, and very sick. But we came back to Birmingham, and I guess it was 79. We built our house and moved here. That's when came back to Cedar Grove, left Eastmont Baptist Church to come here. And Fred Donovan was the pastor. Well, lo and behold, he had been my pastor at Eastmont.
Oh.
So he always said, I followed him here. And I want you to know, talking about following, the day that our van pulled into our driveway there on Palmer Avenue, there was a car that was coming behind it. And it was Betty Donovan, and she was bringing us a bucket of KFC for our lunch.
Oh, how sweet.
Well, Brother Donovan didn't stay all that long. And I guess there was about maybe several pastors in between that time. And in between that time, we celebrated the 150th anniversary. And I was on that committee. Becky Cunningham was on the committee. She worked at Lamp and Lighting. And that's when we got the chandeliers for the church. And so we had so much allotted, and they came through, and they really gave us a good discount. Well, we could buy everyone we needed except the two in the foyer. And so she came to me and she said, Jean, if I can get a good deal, will you buy one of those chandeliers for the foyer? I said, in a minute.
Yeah.
Because, it looked so pretty,
I know it.
And anyway, we celebrated that. Brother Mixon was the interim pastor during that time. And so when I came back in 79, I was privileged to be in Irene Gore's class. Could not ask for a more humble, kind, gentle, loving, sharing person. And Irene had a thorn in her flesh. And she served all these years with that thorn. But she always served in a way that it brought joy to others. Well, then there was Becky Wesson. I was in her class. And then after Becky, I taught in 8 different classes. One of those classes that I was privileged to substitute in was Don Martin.
Oh.
Now, if you want a good, solid foundation of a man that sounded in the Word, that's Don. But he was so gentle and kind that the way he taught his lesson, you just felt like you were there. But he was also a guy of wit.
Yeah.
He would keep us laughing. It was a dry wit, and he would keep us laughing. But when I talk about him being founded in the Word, this little Bible that I just dropped, that I'm holding, is one that came from Jerusalem. My dad brought it to me. And as I hold this word, that means that God is the same, whether it be big print, little print, if it came from Jerusalem or wherever it might have come from. The Word is everything. So after I began to teach, one year I taught as a substitute for the whole Sunday school department. So that meant if there was a teacher out, I went in and substituted. Well, one Sunday it was Don that was going to be out, and he was teaching an all-men's class at this time. Well, I walk in to teach, and lo and behold, who's in the center of it but my sweet husband. So that day, instead of teaching, I preached.
Oh.
I took advantage. It was a thrill. It really was.
Wonderful.
And then after that, I had the opportunity to teach a group of elderly ladies: Fran Smith, Audrey Palmer, Lydia Smith, and several others. And I don't remember the name of the class, but it could very well be known as the wisdom class, because they were all at the age. Miss Fran could tell us all kind of stories, and she did. She shared. But after that, I began to substitute for Billy McReynolds. I did not realize Billy was as sick as he was. And so I was in Don Martin's class again at that time. And so Billy asked me if I would help him in his class. And I said yes. Well, I understood it to mean if he was out sick, you know. Well, came an opportunity for Charles Shepherd to begin a class in the chapel. And so it was going to be couples. So I left Don's class to go to Charles's to be with Clint. And we had 30 members when we began that class. And the youth had used it, so it came time that we had to redo a few things. We did. Clint got his crew. But anyway, he got some in, and they did the things that were necessary to make it a good place for a class. And we served and did several projects, but God began to call some home, some moved, some just left, and so the class moved downstairs, and it ended up this past year with only 4 in the class, so it disbanded. I had left Charles's class because the Yahweh class, their teacher, Mr. White, left. They didn't have a teacher. And at that time, our church was in the midst of studying the story. And so Frank Underwood asked if I would come and be their teacher. I had not been teaching for quite a while. And so it was on a Wednesday morning Bible study that he asked me, and Brother Billy was standing there, and he said, Jenny, why don't you just go in and have the film, this story, and you just be there. And I said, all right, that's what I'll do. Well, that was 3 years ago. I am now teaching the Yahweh class, and they live up to their name. They are the kindest, sweetest. One day somebody asked me, they're all in their late 70s, and somebody said, Jean, what age do you teach? And I said, I teach the elderly. Well, I was 15 years older than any of them, so I don't know what category that put me in. But anyway, that's where I am now. It'll be the last class that I ever teach. But getting back to the pastors, there were 6 that were here from 79 to 92. And then came Billy Abrams. Brother Billy came, he was young, he was eager. That's just like when we were moving so much in those 10 churches we attended in all different cities in Florida. The first thing I would do was to begin looking for a Baptist church. And you know, God was already there because he directed me to one of the best everywhere we went. And there was joy there. And I did not teach at any of those churches, but I worked in the Bible school and the GAs and things like that. And in saying all of these about it's not that I'm boasting. God has given me a life that has been ups and downs, but he's always been there. And I always like to quote from 1 John. He that is within me is greater than he that is in the world. In Numbers, I went to very many different places to live. but he brought me back to Cedar Grove.
Oh,
And bringing me back, he has said to me, the church is a building.
yeah.
The church family is what makes the difference. And I'm grateful. I am so grateful for this church and for what it means to me. Being on this committee of the 175th anniversary means a lot to me. I was there for the 150th. I'll be here for the 175th. And having a grandmother that lived to be 104 years old, I'm looking forward to 200.
Me
And I
too.
say that with a lot of expectation. God can work miracles, and it would take a miracle. But if I'm not here in person for that, I'll be looking down being part of it anyway. That is my next move. And that's to step over and meet Jesus.
Oh,
And all my love.
that's wonderful. Thank you, Jean.